Okay, I think we're live. Hello, this is Howard.
Oh, good.
It's Howard Owens, the publisher of the Batavian. We are going to be talking this morning with Felipe Oltramari, the Genesee County Planning Director, who is in charge of our county census this year. We're going to talk to him about the census and some of the things going on with that, which is a very important part of a lot of what goes on in this county, and we're going to learn more about that. So, hit the wrong button there. So, Philippe, okay, I got you on. Good morning.
Okay. Morning.
So, I appreciate you taking time to do this. I know this is a very important project to you, and it's probably taking up a lot of your time these days. How did you get stuck with it?
Yes, I can. Yeah. That's right. So, do you want me to just get right into it, or?
Well, what I thought where we'd start off is, the census only comes around once every 10 years. And for some of us, maybe we haven't thought about
Right.
that for a while. So maybe remind us, what it is, why it's important, and what's going on with it.
So, the U.S. Census Bureau basically undertakes the decennial census every 10 years, as it's named, always in the year zero. And it's been done every 10 years since 1790. Actually, the first census director was Thomas Jefferson. So it is critical. It's part of our Constitution. It's critical for our nation because it determines the number of representatives in Congress per state, and also determines like the electoral college numbers and all those things. So in order for that to be up to date as to the current population of each state, that the Constitution set up that process. It also one of the biggest things that affects our county is that it serves to distribute all the federal funding based on population as well. So our state gets about $73 billion of federal taxes that we paid back to our state, and it's based on the population. On a yearly basis, we get $73 billion. So one of the things for our county is that our county has been decreasing in population, and it's slated to decrease by about 2,500 people based on estimates since the 2010 census. What's critical for us is to count every person because, if you take those $73 billion and divide it by the population in New York, it's about $30,000 per person. So each person that doesn't get over the 10-year process. So every person that doesn't get counted could be a $30,000 hit for every person that's not counted in our county. So, and that goes to a variety of programs, including Medicaid, student loans, SNAP, which is what used to be called food stamps, Medicare, highway planning and construction. So, your roads, those kinds of things, housing vouchers, housing loans, children's health insurance, school lunch programs. So it's really just about every aspect of life. Sometimes people think that the money comes from the state. A lot of the times it's just a pass-through from the federal government itself. Adoption assistance, victim assistance, all of those programs really rely on that population number.
Hold on, I've got a problem. So, a tab opened there and started playing the stream. So,
Yeah.
you still there?
Okay.
Okay, so sorry about that. The and for users that have probably just started watching it for whatever reason, the stream didn't start on time on the website, and it just started. So
Okay.
it's playing now. People are lagging behind where we're
Yeah,
at. I've
you're a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a connection problem going on, but anyway, let's push forward. So you talked about some of the programs. Are there other programs for the county that are tied to the census?
Yeah, so like I was saying, many of the programs that the county uses itself, but also just the residents from the county rely on that number being accurate. So if that number isn't accurate, that means we're not going to get our shares worth of federal funding, which means not everybody will be able to benefit from the programs and then just general grants and things like that. So it's really your tax money that we paid, and we just want to make sure we get it back. In our county, we have certain areas of our county that haven't been as responsive as they should be. The Ward number 5 of the city of Batavia has been always the lowest responding rate. And so we try to focus some of our outreach programs to that ward, working with the city council, with the city manager as well. So there are a lot of folks there that rely on those kinds of programs. They want to make sure that they're counted. So that's what we're up to here. But I just wanted to kind of, everybody at this point should have received a mailer. They should have received a letter. If you live in the first ward of the county of the city of Batavia, up here in the northeast corner of the city, you would have received a letter of invitation to the census, as well as a paper questionnaire. Same thing with the reservation. But the rest of the county just received a letter saying, please go online and fill it out. And then the second mailer you probably received as well, which is just a reminder. Even if you did that online survey the first day that you got it, you're still going to get that reminder letter, because it's just kind of in the mail before they even started accounting for the people that put it in. But you'll get another reminder postcard next week if you haven't responded to the census. So they'll keep, the Census Bureau will pretty much give you a reminder or some sort of letter every week until you respond, and eventually by mid-May you'll actually have somebody out knocking at your door asking you why I haven't returned the letter. So it's an easy process. It's actually the first time ever that you can answer online. You can also answer by phone as well. So there's an 800 number that if you feel comfortable giving all your answers over the phone, you can do it as well. One of the challenges that we're having right now is because a lot of our public internet areas, like the libraries and those kind of places are closed because of this COVID-19. We've had problems with some folks that can't do it online if they don't have internet access at home. They may just have to wait till their paper questionnaire arrives. So if you haven't responded by between April 8th and April 16th, you will get an actual paper questionnaire. You could also just call that 800 number and request one as well if you don't want to wait till mid-April to get that paper questionnaire. If you don't have internet and we're still kind of in the situation where we have to stay home as much as possible. You can also ask a relative to fill it out for you if they have internet access. Just give them all your information. Give them your code, and they can fill out as well. So as long as you have somebody helping you with that, feel free. Also call the planning department office, and I can guide you to some areas as well. So the other thing too is that the census. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say. So I held this up a little bit while you're talking. I got my letter yesterday, so I haven't opened it yet.
Oh, okay.
But so one of the things about this, I remember one time when I filled out the census. So I don't know. I haven't opened this yet. I don't know what I'm supposed to fill out on here or how much the census form is. But are there like different size census forms? Because I remember one year, couple of decades ago, I got like 17-page form or something I had to fill out. It was like really detailed about everything.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So what's the difference? Just kind of explain that.
Sure. So they're back in the 2000 census. Okay, so we're going to go back 20 years now. There used to be what was called the short form and the long form. Okay, so the short form was basically what you're getting now with the census. The long form had a lot of there's a lot of financial information that you have to put in. It is really like a multi-page form that you had to fill out, right? And so they don't ask all those questions to everybody. Those are based on a sample. Then after the 2010 census, what they did is they got rid of the long form. They only gave people the short form. And what they have is something else called the American Community Survey. And so that gets sent to a sample of 1 in 1,000 people every year. And based on that sample size, they determine things like poverty rates and some of the housing choices and that kind of information that you see that government has to use for grant information or those kinds of things. So that is a green form. So what makes it nice is that the census kind of color codes these. All the census, the regular census stuff should be blue, unless in English anyway. And then the American Community Survey, if you get that, you're just one of the lucky winners who've won the 1,000 chance of getting it. And you're also required to fill it out just like the census. It's just a lot more information. But it's actually you're even more important. You have more of a say because let's say you are someone that gets one of those forms and you happen to be in a situation with a low income and things like that, it can affect the estimate for that entire census tract. And then, for example, our Batavia Development Corporation, or BDC, at the city uses that information to see whether that ward is an opportunity zone. They can issue tax breaks and those kinds of things based on that statistic. So the American Community Survey does have a lot to play in how our economic incentive packages work. Also, one of the things to keep in mind is that the census number, so the actual blue form that you fill out, is that baseline for those estimates from the American Community Survey. So we really more importance to the census because, that's that baseline that you project from. So if that baseline is wrong, then obviously all the projections are going to be off by that many numbers. So you have to make sure that that baseline is really a good number because we have to live for it for 10 years until the next census. And meanwhile, that whole 10 years, all those American Community Survey estimates can be off based on that census. So the census is really important. The American community is really important for a lot of the things we do. And it's something that's sort of hidden from most people in the general public, but it's really how we gather all the economic and demographic information that we need to make decisions as, at the state level, at the federal level, at the county level, even at the local level for economic development purposes.
So the community survey goes on at the same time as the census, so that's happening concurrently with this.
Yeah.
And
and see, I actually have a copy of the American Community Survey here. Uh-huh. You can see it's a green as opposed to the actual census that is blue like that. So it is a lot more questions, a lot more intense, but you're not going to get that every year. You're going to get that randomly. It could happen that you get it 2 years in a row, but that's unlikely usually. So. Well, but fill them out. You are required to fill all those things out.
You said it goes to 1 in 1,000 people. So in the city of Batavia, census tract might only be 3 or 4, 5,000 people. So those few people can have a lot of effect on how that census tract is perceived.
Yeah, actually, it's true. It's true, and actually, I misspoke. It's 1 in 1,000 households, I should say, not people. So all these forms go to households, not people. They don't actually know
I
how many
probably
people in your household. That's why they sent the forms. Yeah. So each household. Yeah, there's some. So we have 23,000 households or so in the county. So on average, every year there's 23 of those surveys being sent out to the county. Some wards only have 500 households, so there must be some sort of minimum. What they do for small municipalities, counties like ours, is they aggregate the data from the previous 5 years. So when you look at the American community data for any particular year for Genesee County. It's actually an aggregate of all the surveys they received for the previous 5 years. And what they do is every year they drop the oldest year and they replace it with the newest year. And that's how they get the statistics, because we are such a low sample size. In New York City, they send enough forms out. And so that number is a number estimate. It's not based on an aggregate of different years. So for the smaller communities, they have to do that just in order to have a more accurate sample size. But even then, when you look at the American Community Survey numbers, there is a pretty large margin of error for those numbers, and there's not much you can do about that. It's just when you look at those numbers, at the American Community numbers, they're really looking at trends more than they are looking at the actual number. So when they report a population number, they want to see, they're not, saying that that's the actual number. They're saying that, compare that to the previous survey for the previous year and see how it's doing. So they're looking at trends as opposed to actual numbers based on those, because there are estimates with margins of error.
So one of the things I was thinking about with this, you talked a lot about how this impacts the community for elections, electoral college, the congressional districts particularly. It'll affect reapportionment in our state legislature. So it's really important that way. But there's also, I think, an interesting aspect to this is, I don't know how much time you spent, say, on your genealogy or looking stuff up, but I've trolled through Ancestry.com looking into my family, and it's interesting to go back. Like, I found my mother living in a boarding home with her grandmother and her mother in Oakland when she was like 3 years old, and she had a totally different name then. It was kind of just fun to see that census. And back then, I take it that was back in the days when a census taker went to each individual address and filled out the form with the person there. And so it's very interesting to look at. And really, this is important historical information about the country. I mean, we will learn more, future historians will learn more about us. And you can also imagine, I think, someday your great-grandchildren, say, or great-great-grandchildren looking up and finding your census data once it becomes publicly available in like 70 or 80 years, whenever it is. So,
I think
that's an interesting aspect.
It's called the 72-year rule. Mm-hmm. So the census become public information after 72 years. And that's, I think it was kind of derived at the point where like they figured, people aren't going to be alive after 72 years, but obviously we're living a little longer now. But, if you were in a census 72 years ago, that information is, obviously out of date. So it's not going to help anybody find you usually. So after 72 years, you'll see that information. It is useful. Like, if you watch those genealogy shows or, Finding Your Roots or PBS or whatever, they always use census data and they go back and they find your relatives that way. It is kind of an interesting thing too. It does serve to help to, put down, history and there for people to find later. Yeah.
So like a lot of us, we can see you're working from home,
right,
under the current circumstances, and you kind of touched us on this already, but how is what's going on with the coronavirus and a lot of the sheltering in place or whatnot and the social distancing, how is that affecting what needs to be done with the census?
Oh, it's affecting us big time because so we had planned on doing several events, especially around April 1st, which is Census Day. That's the reference date that the census uses for how many people are in your household. So when you count how many people are living there, you're supposed to say, okay, if you answer it before April 1st, you're kind of looking ahead to that date. If you answer it after April 1st, you're kind of looking back to that date. And because it's supposed to be a big, outreach opportunity and focus that, you can have, we were planning on having, computer labs open for people to come in and, and fill out their census. We were hoping to have an event with the library to do that. Another thing we had planned was we were going to have something called census dinners, and we were going to have, basically we're going to feed people and encourage them to fill out their census and have like, portable laptops there for people to fill them out and those things. And because of all the distancing, it's really, there's not much we can do about that. They're going to have to be canceled. we're going to have to find a different way to reach people. So, advertising is going to be our main thing, but, even if people are home, it's, if you put a banner over Main Street, it's not going to get as much of, exposure as it would have been in the past. So, yeah, it is unfortunate. We are working with some of the school districts, and we did ask the superintendents to put in a census flyer with all the grab and go bags that the students, some of the schools are giving away, like the meals for the students to pick up. And we figured we could reach them somehow that way. We did have the state was going to offer us some money to do some census outreach, and we were hoping to have received it by, we were promised that funding by March 12th, and we haven't gotten any of it yet, and we haven't even received an email that why it's being delayed. So I'm assuming it's because all those people are also working at home from the state. And so it's just, it's going to be a difficult thing. I am hoping, and there is some petitions from some of our legislators to extend the census into August to hopefully reach more people but they're not going to make the decision until they get some of the preliminary numbers. One of the nice things is because a lot of the response is online, the census has a website that will be live on March 20th, and it actually show you by census tract how those response rates are going. So hopefully in the future, we'll be able to contact those folks somehow, or target those areas that are lagging behind the rest of the state or the county in terms of response rates. So that website will be live March 20th. We're being assured, and it's open to anybody to look at. So if you have a pretty cohesive village or census tract in your area, maybe you can have bragging rights if you're doing your best there to return the survey. But we have reached out to a lot of folks already, and just through word of mouth, and then hopefully through things like this webcast to reach out to answer the census.
So one thing I've been curious about is, it in every community, is it the planning director that's in charge of the census, or did you just draw the short straw?
No, well, so but the county planning department is always kind of like this catch-all department. When people don't especially at county level, people don't know who should be doing this. They go, maybe the county planning department should be doing it, and we don't mind. Actually, we do have a lot of contacts with the community. We know a lot of local officials, a lot of players. We do so many other things that it's not hard for us to do it. But as far as I know, we've done this at the county planning department since I think 1970 was the first census where there was actually a county planning department. I remember 2010 census, we had the swine flu, which was kind of interesting, and we had, it wasn't as crazy as this, obviously, and we were handing out little hand sanitizer bottles with census 2010, and those were ahead. They were gone in seconds, and I wish we had a thought of that earlier. I
remember that.
So that was interesting how they kind of history repeats itself, and and we again had the same. I don't know if the conspiracy people are going to start thinking about this now, but yeah, we seem to have something like this every once in a while, and it just happens to have two census years in a row. This is definitely a whole new animal in terms of how it's affecting outreach, for sure.
Felipe, I appreciate.
Yeah. So
is there anything else you want to cover that we haven't hit on?
No, if you have any questions, feel free to reach me. Just Google Genesee County Planning Department. We're the first thing that pops up. Also, if you need help answering it, I can answer questions. I did field a phone call yesterday about that already. And then beyond that, if you have questions about data, we're always at source at the county level as to, what the population is and demographics or any sort of things like that. It's all available online, but it's it's not the easiest because it's so robust. It's not the easiest website to manage and to to go through. So sometimes, having people that do it on a, at least weekly basis is nice to have. So feel free to reach out to us with any questions or things like that. And answer your census. It's important.
Great, Felipe. Well, I'll end on that too. Answer your census. I'll fill mine out. And I appreciate your time. I know you got a lot going on right now, so I appreciate your time. And to sign off, this is Howard Owens with the Batavian. Look for more live interviews with community people, community leaders from us, and especially during this time with our shelter-in-place sort of protocol going on. You all be safe, and I'm probably going to see you later on this afternoon. Again, thanks, Fleet.
Not a problem. Take care.